How important do you think, or what role do you think music plays in a person's life?
Well, Shakespeare said if music is the food of love, play on. Music was so important. I used to eat, sleep, drink music when I was a kid, growing up. And I realized that if we were to tell children who have an innate ability and talent, God given talent for music that some have, to that, hey, don't get into that. Focus on your books. You need to become a, structural engineer. Come on. Uh, that's so wrong at so many levels. We are not the ones to start putting out the lights, right?
It's a huge thing.
It's a huge thing. And I find that these are the children who are happier. They're able to handle things at a much more easier level because something so complex they got at a very early age.
Welcome to Unbox with Tunvey, a podcast that's about inspirational conversations with people who've led unconventional, unusual lives and are living up to their highest potential to make a difference in this world. Today, I have with me someone who's taken quite a trajectory from the world of media to education. He's been an executive producer with NBC in New York. He has, been with Newstrack and with Headlines Today and with Times Now, and then, took a turn towards education. He's got a PhD in education and media. And he's quite the adventurist as well. He's very fond of music. He's a biker. And I think he's just my sense is that he's an adventurer at heart. Please help me welcome Dr. Michael Williams. Thank you so much for having or coming on the show with us, Michael.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sadhvi. Thanks for having me. And thanks for that great introduction. I'm excited to meet this guy. But thanks.
No, I think when I was reading up about you and I saw some of your interviews, and I was quite excited to have this conversation because you've had a very unconventional life. You've done many things, you've had different kinds of experiences, and I think in one of your conversations you just said that the dots all connected eventually,
Yes.
and we'll talk more about it. but
Yes.
but tell me, how was it that a boy from Delhi went to the US and worked with NBC, became the youngest executive producer they've had,
Yes.
and an Indian back then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking early 90s. It's an amazing journey for me now when I look back. And one has the luxury to sort of look back and see how it all happened and where we are at today. And was this where we always planned we were going to be? And it's humbling to understand that what you thought was just uh, stumbling through life, bumbling your way through, was all with a plan. And when you sit back and understand that, it's insane. I'll tell you, I loved music, piano, guitar. My focus was that. I loved table tennis, loved sports. So obviously, I was one of the kids in school who just loved to goof around.
Didn't want to study.
Academia was something that, math was a four-letter word every which way. So for me to understand that love for music, performing on stage, allowed somebody to be able to see me at a teenage time, offer me a radio show late night, which allowed me to go to the US, study, get into NBC broadcast, and a journey that I absolutely loved. 25 years as a broadcaster, and then to find myself today as heading up a group of educational institutions for a child who was expected by all teachers to never succeed. You see? He was not the top in physics or the top in bio and did not get into medical school or engineering. And in those days, if you didn't make it into this, the family was embarrassed to own up. They'd rather take you behind the barn and just put you down.
True.
But then the journey is amazing, and it's a journey of which exemplifies hope and belief that there is a master plan. There is a journey that we're through, and something that only we can do. And God has put us here for that very specific purpose that nobody else can do. And it doesn't matter how we were in high school or early days or college or What happened? It starts to come together when you
I
trust.
think I totally agree with what you're saying. I've had a trajectory of sorts, and I can't even, started from television, did all kinds of things, got into training and development, coaching, and I think all the experiences, good, bad. I mean, I started businesses, shut businesses. I've had a roller coaster of a ride, but I think my ability to coach people and help people today is is not a profession for me. It's like you said, it's a calling, and it's something that I feel very deeply about. And I think I'm able to do a better job because of all the experiences I've had, the good ones, the not
Absolutely.
so good ones, the pleasant and the very unpleasant ones, all put together. I think they all make us who we are today,
Yes,
right?
yes. It's all these little jigsaw pieces.
Yeah.
It all looks like a mess, but when you step back, it's a beautiful picture.
Yeah, it's true. But it must have been tough for you because, like you said, you weren't into academics, but
Yes.
both your sisters are
Yes. Yes,
doctors.
they are.
And today you're the dean of the Mount Carmel institutions.
Yes.
That must have been quite a journey. And,
Yes.
even as a child, it must have been difficult, I'm assuming,
Yes.
when everyone was very academically focused.
Yeah, especially my dad, even though he was in the Air Force, he joined the Air Force because he India was getting ready to go to war, and this is 1965. He was a professor at Allahabad University
Oh,
and married, had a child, but said, "I want to do something for my country. It's now or never," and joined the Air Force. Left his academic career behind, fought two wars. So he was this man of great academia and great discipline, and with the ruthlessness of a military man who has experienced two wars. Growing up in that environment, and my mother coming from a very large family, and she being the baby of the family, her brother and she had like a 22-year age gap.
wow.
She's an accidental child. And so she grew up with traveling with her mother, who went about setting up schools in those days. I'm talking before independence. And so she had academia in her DNA as well. But she came from the art side. She was an English literature student. She loved music. Her family had a lot of musicians. So they enjoyed this. So I got some of that DNA. My sisters got my father's academic DNA. And I think it balanced out well at the end of it. The kids sort of split that well.
Was it difficult when you came back from the US? So, you were with NBC in New
Yes.
York, and then you came back into India, and there's Newstrack and
Yes.
headlines and,
Yes.
Times Now. But was it difficult culturally to
Well, I
fit
think
in back again?
that's a good question. Uh, Culturally, not so much for me.
Hmm.
But I got married in the US. I had two children in the US.
So it was tougher for them,
For
probably.
them, it was just horrible. And for me, driving my car, trying to make everything look natural for them, and for these kids who would freak out, I remember the first time that a person suffering with leprosy came onto the back window and knocked. And my son Mark was sitting there, and he was knocking to get some money. And both my kids just started to scream because they thought it was straight out of a horror movie. It looked like somebody with bandages, eyes, nose falling out. They couldn't understand what's going on, and they were screaming, "Dad, save us!" And I'm putting my window down and telling this guy, "Chalo yahan se, jao yahan se." And I didn't know what else to do, but the kids, and so my son started to have nightmares from that one moment. He thought we were being attacked by
Zombies.
zombies. It was insane. And so that's things like that. But technically, the kind of equipment and the kind of training that media people had in India was light years from
From where you came
where I
from.
came. And I did an undergrad in that training. I did a master's in broadcast journalism, worked with all kinds of digital equipment. By the time we came back here, we were still on the good old 2.5 inch pneumatic tapes, with which needed a crew of six to carry one camera and one recorder everywhere we went. So it was difficult. And trying to explain to them, can I get an X-axis lighting for this two-person interview? They had no idea
What that even
what that
meant.
even meant. Because lighting and all that was considered a below-the-line job,
Saying, okay, just put up something, and
right?
it's all
And in
right.
the US, your lighting director, you listened to him and you respected the guy. The guy was fairly senior, but not so here. It was quite a learning experience to be able to understand that the lighting guy, the audio guy, did not have the same level of respect those days. I'm sure everything is different
No,
now.
no,
They've
I
caught
think
on.
it is very, very different now. But yeah, I mean, I started my television career in 93, 94, and you're right. I mean, I did my first live telecast talk show with live phone in without a talkback. Only in India, where I'm getting frantic messages from the side, bored, something's
Scribbled
written,
on paper.
no talkback. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
it was quite, I think, the wild, wild west.
I can imagine.
That's
Yes,
what it
yes,
was.
it was different times. But India was there was a huge growth. There was a potential everybody could see. India was hungry for news. People wanted to know. Otherwise, it was just an authoritarian sort of broadcast. Whatever Doordarshan fed you, you took it as the biblical gospel truth, and that was it. But that there
No,
was
I
so much
think
more.
Newstrack changed that.
Yes,
The World This Week changed that. There
yes,
were a couple of these shows where my father, an army man himself, would make me
yes,
sit and,
yes.
watch, sing, see what's happening in the world. And I
Right,
remember waiting for Newstrack to come.
right. But Tanvi, even though I was on the team of Newstrack, the time lag
Yeah, yeah.
is insane.
At least we got the
We
information.
got the information, but it was too late to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was more of an informative. You can't do anything about it, but here's what happened 2 months ago. That's how they all died, and that's the end of the story. Good night.
Yeah.
And so, it was just a fait accompli.
But I think it was better than not knowing
I
at all, because otherwise there was
I
just
don't
a.
know. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, I don't know whether better is a
Ignorance
better. Yeah,
sometimes is bliss.
yeah, better is a dangerous word.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, no judgment. So, well, that's what it was, and let's leave it at that. One of the things that you're very fond of, and you, I think, try to inculcate it in your schools as well, in your institutions, is music. And how important do you think, or what role do you think music plays in a person's life?
Well, Shakespeare said if music is the food of love, play on, right? I think uh, music is what really makes everything beautiful and meaningful. I love music, and I realized very early in life, as a television person, and you would have also, that there are only so many chartered accountants and so many engineers, site engineers, and civic engineers that you interview. But how many musicians and dancers and artists? You can't get enough of them, right? And those are the ones, and they are the ones who light up the panorama. They are the ones who make a country proud. They are the ones who make a family sort of sit up. They are the ones who bring youth to everything. And so for me, music was so important. I used to eat, sleep, drink music when I was a kid growing up. Uh, and I realized that if we were to tell children who have an innate ability and talent, God given talent for music that some have, to that, hey, don't get into that. Focus
Focused
on your
on
book.
studies, yeah.
You need to become a structural engineer. Come on. uh that's so wrong at so many levels. We are not the ones to start putting out the lights, and we are the ones who need to fan these flames. So I brought in music into Mount Carmel's and made it mandatory for every student from class 1
Wow.
to play an instrument. So a child, when he leaves Mount Carmel in grade 12, knows three
Instruments for
instruments.
sure.
Every single child.
So they'll do one instrument for 3 or 4 years.
3 years, 3 years. That's in class 4, where they take a serious instrument: piano, violin, guitar. But before you get to class 4, on the recorder program, you get to learn the scales. So the language. And I figured, like any other language, music has a language,
Oh, it is a language. Of
which
course,
is
it is a
written
language.
down.
Yeah.
It's a script. There's a proper script. And this is truly the only universal language there is.
I totally agree. I think because my father was in the army and we got posted very often, I learned, I think, maybe 12 or 13 instruments over the years. I don't play a single one of them well.
Okay. Okay.
But I think that exposure, so some places in school I got the harmonium, some places I got the jaltarang,
Yes, sure.
and somebody would drink the water and my jaltarang would be out of tune.
Right, right, right. Of
The
course.
banjo
Yes,
and the
yes,
guitar, Spanish guitar, Hawaiian guitar.
yes.
But I think seriously, I did sitar and piano for a couple of years each.
Okay. So, which is how that fare used to be fed out and dished out in all schools, even for me. But I wanted to change that. I wanted to get it serious, and I'll tell you why. Because from class one, when you get onto the recorder, uh, there is one part of education which says it's A, B, C, D, E follows G, follows one, follows two, three, four. There's a linear thought that you're giving your child. But in music, you jump notes, you discordant notes. So you're telling the child that there is a world where A, C, E works, also makes sense, but it's in this world. And and that explosion for that child to understand that, right?
It's a huge thing.
It's a huge thing. And I find that these are the children who are happier. They're able to handle things at a much more easier level because something so complex they got at a very early age.
No, I think music also helps a lot with managing stress and being present.
For
You can't
sure.
play an instrument until you're present. You're reading
Yes.
the notes and you're playing
Yes.
something. So I think it teaches us to live mindfully.
Yes.
It reduces stress and anxiety
All around.
all
Even the
around.
listener.
Even the listener,
Yes.
absolutely. So I think, yeah, it's a huge I think it's a great thing that you're doing. What do you think about the new education policy that's just been announced a couple of days back, where they're saying that children will now be able to choose subjects irrespective of streams, and they want to, over the next 10 years, get out of this whole rote
Right.
system? Right now, the Indian education system is very rote heavy.
Right.
You can study something, mug it up,
Yes.
go and vomit it out, and then
Yes.
forget it 6 weeks, 6 days, 6 hours
Yes.
later. So, what do you think about this?
So I'll tell you, Tanvi, I have some very, very different thoughts.
Mm.
Then, because the education policy that we're talking about is actually the seventh incarnation of the national education policy for 2016 onwards. And we've had four education ministers who have come and tried to push this down everybody's throats in different shapes and sizes, and they just have not got it right. There are some good things. There are some things that are horribly bad. Uh, and so this is something that needs to be seriously looked at.
So, you think it needs a little more debate before it's
No,
implemented?
not just a little more debate. I think we need to, for example, I think the time has come that board exams are thrown out. There is no room in India anymore for board exams. I like the concept 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, make that one unit, one semester, so you have a total of 8 semesters. Children can study anything they want all through. I'm very happy. I don't think board exams have rooms anymore because now there are private entrance exams.
That are happening everywhere now, absolutely.
So my children post 12th have so much of stress to take JEE and NEET and CUET and every single competitive exam.
Board exam, which is actually irrelevant for any of these other entrances.
Nobody cares. Nobody asks you, oh, you did that in your board exam, but you failed the NEET. Forget the NEET. Your board exams count. No, the board exam is irrelevant, but we are forcing our kids, giving them this stress on this particular day at 9 o'clock. You better perform at 100%. Everybody's expected on that day to be able to do it. So, child can't fall sick. Child cannot afford to have any stress in the house. Mom and dad, everything needs to be copacetic and harmonious in the universe. So, that's ridiculous.
Doesn't work.
So, I'm saying, look, you want to talk about national education policy? Then let's do this. What is our focus of education? What do we want? Are we trying to say the whole purpose of education in school is for a child to get into college? Then that's ridiculous. Because if that is all it is, then make sure that as many students, that many seats in university, your problem is solved.
True.
But our system, and I'm part of that system, and Tanvi, this is what breaks my heart. The way it is structured is you have 100 primary schools and you have 10 secondary schools and 6 senior secondary schools.
That's the percentage.
That's the pyramid. So, with 6 senior secondary schools, already 94 primary schools are required to fail those kids.
Because there's no place for
There's
them
no
to go.
place, yeah. And then, if I told you from here to what the situation is for university level, it's pathetic.
It's very bad, yeah.
So, you need to overhaul this system. I think it's great for every child. Study what you want. You have 4 years, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Take science, take literature, take chemistry, take bio, take
Yeah, I
math.
think I think schooling really should be about exposure,
Yes,
experience, just
yes,
getting to see what's out there
yes.
without having to make up your mind too early
Can you
on.
believe that?
So many of us went into college thinking, "Oh, this is going to be
Yes.
so cool," and 6 months through college, you're saying, "Oh God, this is not what I wanted to do," but now you're stuck because you.
I'll tell you, you expect kids to start voting at the age of 18. You allow them to start driving, etc. beyond that, drinking 21, 25, depending. But at 15, you're asking that child to take a drastic decision
For the rest of their
for
lives.
the rest of their lives. Going to be a science student or a commerce? How ridiculous is this?
And of course, you can always change and that option exists, but it means that you lose out on a few years if you want to restart. You've taken science and now you want to shift. You have to start from scratch. You lose
Yes.
out
Yes.
years.
Yes, that's insane. So I'm just saying that look, all of these things are ridiculous. You want education? Let's make sure children are having fun. Children are learning. Let them after 12th take all the entrance exams they want,
And then figure
wherever
out
they
what they want to do.
let them land where they want to land. But you have given them a buffet spread of all different at a fairly rich, nutritious level.
Yeah.
So the child can make a decision. He can take a lower physics and an advanced physics between his ninth and his 12th. He can take a lower math and a higher math. He can take subjects that will give him credit for college, which is all over the world. The rest of the countries have those AP advanced placement courses. I'm saying make that school into an actual springboard for success
True.
and not this looming dark landscape of a board exam on one
Now,
day,
now two board exams.
two board exams. So,
Tell me one thing. I've been in the training space for many years now, and one of the things that I see with young adults in corporates when I train and I teach, or even a lot of professionals who come in for coaching, homemakers, young professionals, senior professionals, and one of the things I realize is that most of them don't have a well evolved emotional quotient.
yes.
So they don't know how to recognize their emotions. They don't know how to manage their emotions. Recognizing a social scenario and managing social scenarios is a secondary thing. I'm saying
Yes.
just as a person
Yes.
to be able to know what you're feeling
Yes.
and then to be able to manage that
Yes.
feeling is such a huge life skill.
Yes.
And when I see adults in different ages struggling just with their own emotions and it's impacting every area of their life, I keep thinking, why is emotional intelligence not taught in school? It's a skill.
Yes.
It's a skill like walking, talking, reading, math. It's a skill and it can be acquired, it can be learned.
Yes.
In fact, I think Harvard has done a case study saying one of the biggest barometers of success today is not your IQ, it's actually your EQ.
EQ.
But do you think that these are things that would do well and we should introduce them in school?
Well, there's I thought about this long time back, and 7 years ago we implemented it in Mount Carmel's.
Oh, wow.
We created something called the pastoral care vertical.
Hmm.
We have a vice principal pastoral care. That's how much importance we give it. So we have a vice principal academics, we have a vice principal co-scholastics, and we have a vice principal pastoral care. Under the pastoral care, the music program, under the pastoral care, the counseling team, the special educators, all of that comes in.
Wow.
And we increased the times three post the pandemic because children needed to talk. Little children locked inside small apartments with young parents saw and heard things that their little eyes and ears should never have been exposed to, and they can't unforget and they can't unhear and unsee, but we had to work with them to contextualize and help them work and cope with a lot of it. So, having studied in a convent yourself, you understand there's a biblical basis for what we do in our schools. And so, from the Bible, there's a passage which talks about Jesus growing up in wisdom and stature, favor with God, and in favor with man. So, we take that as our bedrock to say there's a fourfold growth. Wisdom means your academic, and stature means your physical, and favor with God means your spiritual, and favor with man means your social connect,
Skills and your social interaction.
emotional skills. When you're talking, do you lose your temper? How do you listen to somebody? All of that. So we have created the pastoral care department to cater to these needs 7 years ago. And I think this is something that every school needs to bring in, because I believe the purpose of school is not to prepare you for college,
For life.
for life. There's no second chance. You don't teach a person to get ready for life in college. It's too late. They got to get into career. But here is when you teach them how to be a good human being, a loving, a sharing, caring, one who gives, one who looks after the needs of others before his own, to be able to love, to be able to have team, be trustworthy, dependable. That's when you teach them.
Yeah. Just one last question
Sure.
before we, wrap up our conversation. In all of your conversations, you've spoken very deeply about faith, about your faith and how your faith in God was brought you back, had a, your relationship with your father improved, your relationship with yourself improved, and how this journey that you undertook, this beautiful 25 years in broadcast journalism and now in education, and it all just kind of fell in place because of the deep faith that you had. It allowed you to, allowed doors to be opened for you. I just want to ask that, how important do you think is having faith, any faith, in any ideology, religion, or just something that could be an anchor for you? How important do you think it is for any person to have?
Tanvi, that's a very important question from my point of view, because I think in my life that is the bedrock. You see, you've got to understand people are looking for purpose in life. Why am I here? What is this all about? Faith is what gives you that. To understand you've been specially created for a purpose that only you can do at this particular time is important. Faith is also understanding that we are not the master of the universe, there's somebody else.
There's
But
something bigger, something.
even when there's nobody else and it's all dark, God is watching. And I'm accountable for every word, every gesture, every wrong and right, right? So, apart from this moral dilemma, it is also important to be able to understand that there may be an afterlife. It's open for debate, but if you're somebody who believes that this is not it, the minute I die, it's not over, game over, it's not one of those things that the screen shuts down. There's more to it, there's a spiritual component. Then where is that going to go? And for me, faith decides that journey post this life.
Yeah, it also
Yes.
probably, you don't fear death. You'll probably look
Not just
forward to
that,
it.
yes, in one sense, but also because that is secure. It's like I know very well from here, I'm going to go home. My wife would have cooked something really nice. I'm secure in that thought. It's not that I'm taking it for granted, but I'm secure in that thought. If even if she's not, I'm going to order a nice pizza in there. But so much more for afterlife. To have that confidence, it allows me to live my life here and now with a very different level of confidence, and a different level of enjoyment. There's something that we need called forgiveness, and it's very hard for us to forgive ourselves. We need, because we all make mistakes and we've all done terrible things. We've all committed moral wrongs that just because we were not arrested by law and were never discovered, we're scot free. But it's there in our heart. And I found that only in my faith. In the person of Jesus, I found that forgiveness. That's great for me. And so, like you said, any faith is important if you're serious about it.
Yeah, that's true.
If you do it superficially to wear a color on your armband, that's rubbish. I don't do that at all.
Because I think faith is an internal journey anyway. It's not an
Absolutely.
external journey.
It should never be. It should never be. And least of all to political leaders and to naysayers and others who have nothing to do with my life, for me to justify any existence is completely ridiculous. It's a very quiet thing between you, your creator, and a moment when you shut your eyes.
That's true.
How you behave with your fellow brothers, your citizen, your country, your nation, your family is on you right here. Be judged for that, but not for what you say when you close your eyes. That's the most absurd thing.
Well, it was so nice speaking to you, and I'm feeling a surge of energy. Thank you so much for this conversation, for opening up and sharing your heart. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you for having me, Tanvi.
Well, that's it on Unbox with Tanvi. We'll catch you on another episode soon.